When you find yourself walking through a season where the weight feels heavier, the obstacles taller, and the opposition stronger, know that this is not by accident. This is the moment when life presses in and everything seems to stretch you beyond your limits. It's not a punishment, it's a preparation. Testing always precedes promotion. The resistance you face is an indication that you are closer than you realize to what God has prepared for you. The enemy doesn't fight what isn't a threat. If the challenges in your life have intensified, it's because the breakthrough on the other side is greater than you can currently see. Think of a seed in the soil. Before it breaks through the surface, there is a deep, dark, hidden process happening underground. The seed feels pressure on all sides. It must push through dirt, survive the weight of the earth, and endure storms it cannot escape. But that pressure is not there to destroy the seed. It's there to activate the life that was always inside it. The adversity is part of the process that leads to growth. Similarly, the increased challenges you face are not meant to crush you, but to activate the power within you that would remain dormant without the struggle. God allows these moments because he knows that without them, you might settle. You might stop short of the full manifestation of his plan for your life. When opposition increases, it's not because he has forgotten you. It's because he is positioning you. The most intense battles are often fought just before the victory is won. The pressure is proof that something significant is on the horizon. You cannot afford to let the difficulty convince you that it's time to turn back. The very fact that you are encountering such resistance is confirmation that you are moving in the right direction. The enemy's strategy is to wear you down to make you believe the struggle isn't worth it. But if you can hold on through the difficulty, if you can press forward even when everything in you wants to quit, you will witness the breakthrough that was being birthed in the midst of the battle. This is not the time to shrink back, it is the time to dig deeper. When the fire intensifies, it purifies. When the storm rages, it clears away what was never meant to remain. You may not see the full picture now, but trust that God does. Every obstacle, every trial, and every tear is watering the ground for the breakthrough that is coming. You were not brought this far to be left where you are. There is something being cultivated in you that will be revealed in due time. So stand firm. The increased opposition is not a sign to give up. It is a sign to press on, for the breakthrough is closer than you think. There are moments in life when heaven feels quiet. You pray, but the words seem to hang in the air without echo. You search for answers, but they don't come the way you expect. The silence can feel deafening, unsettling, even as if God has turned his face away. But silence is not abandonment. Silence is often the space where God does his deepest work. It's in the stillness and the quiet moments of uncertainty that faith is refined and trust is stretched. When God goes silent, it's not because he isn't moving, it's because he's testing the depth of your trust. Will you still believe when the heavens seem closed? Will you continue to press forward even when there's no clear sign to direct your path? Sometimes God steps back to see if you'll stand firm in what he's already spoken. The word you received before the silence is still valid. Just because he isn't speaking now doesn't mean he's changed his mind. A teacher is always quiet during the test. The silence isn't a sign that you are forgotten. It's a signal that you are being examined, not for your failure, but for your promotion. God is watching to see if you will hold to his promises when nothing around you seems to confirm them. The enemy would love to use the silence to sow doubt, to make you question whether you heard God in the first place. But remember, silence is the proving ground of faith. It's where real trust is born, not when the answers are clear, but when they are hidden. When Jesus slept in the storm, the disciples panicked, mistaking his silence for neglect. But his quietness didn't mean he wasn't in control. The storm was simply an opportunity for their faith to grow. God's silence in your life may feel like a storm, but it's a chance for you to lean in, to remember that even when he seems still, he is sovereign. The quiet moments are not empty, they are full of unseen activity. In the silence, God often works behind the scenes, aligning people, places, and opportunities that will intersect with your life at just the right time. He's shifting things in ways you cannot yet perceive. But if you let the quiet discourage you, you may step out of alignment before the breakthrough manifests. Silence is not the absence of God's hand, it's the backdrop against which his next move will shine even brighter. Keep pressing, even when the answers tarry. Keep standing, even when the heavens seem still. Silence is the place where endurance is built, and those who endure will reap the harvest. The breakthrough is not delayed, it's being prepared. When the silence lifts, you will look back and realize that God was present all along, orchestrating the next chapter of your life. So let the quiet strengthen you, not shake you. For even in silence, God speaks volumes through his faithfulness. There is something about waiting that tests the very core of who we are. It's not the kind of waiting that feels light or temporary. It's the kind that stretches on longer than you anticipated, pressing on your spirit and tugging at the edges of your patience. This kind of waiting can make you question if God has heard your prayers at all. But delay does not mean denial. In fact, the waiting is often the space where God is preparing you for the very thing you've been praying for. The human heart naturally resists waiting. We crave immediacy, searching for shortcuts and quicker paths to the promise. But God's process doesn't operate on human timelines. His delays are divine setups designed to cultivate something deeper within you. The waiting is not a pause in your progress, it's a part of it. In the stillness of delay, God is sharpening your discernment, fortifying your endurance, and aligning you with his perfect will. Consider this: when a child asks for something they are not ready to handle, a loving parent may delay the gift not to withhold it, but to ensure that the child can carry it well. In the same way, God's delays are not to deprive you, but to develop you. He knows that premature blessings can crush rather than uplift. So in his wisdom, he holds certain things back until the foundation beneath you is strong enough to sustain what he's about to release. The waiting season reveals what is hidden. It shows you the cracks in your faith, the areas where doubt lingers, and the places where trust still needs to grow. Waiting isn't passive, it's an active, refining process. Every day you choose to believe despite the delay, your faith grows stronger. Every time you refuse to quit, perseverance deepens within you. Waiting stretches you in ways that ease never could. And by the time the breakthrough arrives, you'll find that you're not just stepping into a blessing, you're stepping into it equipped, prepared, and ready. The danger lies in mistaken delay for rejection. There's a temptation to walk away when things take too long, to settle for something lesser just because it arrives quicker. But nothing birthed out of impatience will ever match what God had planned in his timing. The enemy would love for you to give up during the waiting, but if you could see what's on the other side, you'd understand that the wait is a small price to pay for the magnitude of the blessing coming your way. Trust the process. When God says wait, it's not because he is idle, it's because he is actively working behind the scenes, arranging circumstances, shifting things into place, and making sure that when the doors open, you're stepping into something lasting. So hold on a little longer. Delay doesn't mean God has forgotten you. It means he's preparing you for something far greater than you imagine. The waiting isn't wasted. It's the place where destiny is being forged. There will come a time when the temptation to give up seems almost irresistible. The path feels too long, the struggle too intense, and the weight of the journey bears down like a storm that refuses to pass. It's in these moments, just when you are ready to lay it all down, that you must recognize the significance of the test. The temptation to quit often intensifies right before the breakthrough. The enemy knows he cannot stop what God has ordained, but if he can convince you to walk away, he doesn't have to. When you are close to something great, opposition rises in ways you never expected. Doors that once seemed open suddenly close. People you thought would stand by you may fade into the background. The enemy whispers that it's too hard, that maybe you misunderstood the call, or that perhaps it wasn't meant to happen. But this is the moment to stand firm, because the closer you get to destiny, the louder the opposition becomes. The temptation to quit is the enemy's last-ditch effort to block what's already in motion. Breakthroughs are often hidden behind walls of perseverance. It's not that the promise isn't real, It's that the process requires you to fight for it. There are some blessings that will only come through endurance because God wants to ensure that you are fully ready to carry them when they arrive. If the weight feels heavier, it's because your capacity is being stretched. The tests you are facing are not signs to turn back. They are evidence that you are in the final stretch. Think about the farmer who sows seeds. After days and weeks of watering, he may not see any evidence of growth. The temptation might be to abandon the field, to walk away believing that nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, the seed is breaking open, roots are spreading, and the harvest is forming. If the farmer gives up too soon, he risks forfeiting the fruit that was moments away from breaking through the soil. The same is true in your life. What you've been working toward, praying for, and believing in is closer than you think. But the enemy will try to cloud your vision with exhaustion and discouragement. That's when you must anchor yourself in the promises of God. The urge to quit isn't a signal to stop, it's a sign to press harder. Your breakthrough isn't behind you, it's right in front of you. You may feel tired, and that's understandable, but tired doesn't mean finished. Rest if you need to, but don't quit. Let the strength of God carry you through the moments when your own strength fails. When the pressure mounts and the temptation to walk away rises, remind yourself that this is exactly where you need to be. The enemy wouldn't fight you this hard if there wasn't something powerful on the other side. Hold on. You're closer to the finish line than you know. There are seasons when loss seems to come in waves and the setbacks feel relentless. Just when you think you're gaining ground, something is pulled from under you. It feels like the harder you try, the more things unravel. But don't be fooled, loss is often a setup for something greater. What looks like a setback in the natural is often a divine setup for growth, elevation, and alignment with God's greater purpose. Sometimes things must fall apart so the right pieces can come together. God allows certain things to be stripped away, not to harm you, but to prepare you. Some losses are necessary because what you're holding on to cannot go with you into the next season. The weight of unnecessary attachments, relationships, and positions can keep you anchored to a place God is trying to move you from. When loss comes, it can feel like a harsh pruning, but pruning always precedes greater growth. A tree that bears much fruit must first be cut back. The branches that remain are not less, they are stronger, capable of producing more than they ever could before. Think about moments in your life when you've experienced loss and then look back at how God used that very moment to pivot you towards something better. Sometimes what we see as loss is actually redirection. You may have lost a job, but that loss created space for a new opportunity you never would have pursued. You may have experienced the end of a relationship, but that ending opened the door for deeper healing and new connections that align with your purpose. What feels like the end is often the beginning of something far greater. God knows the weight of what's ahead, and in his wisdom, he allows certain things to be removed because they cannot sustain the blessing he's about to release. If he lets you keep everything, the foundation might crack under the pressure. Some relationships would not survive the next level. Some habits would sabotage the blessing, and some environments would suffocate the growth. So in his mercy, God removes them not to hurt you, but to make room for the new thing he is preparing. It's easy to mourn what was lost, and grieving is part of the process, but don't let grief keep you stuck. Loss is not the final chapter. God uses every setback to propel you forward. What feels like a door closing is often a doorway being carved into a space you didn't even know existed. Trust that God sees the whole picture. While you may only see the broken pieces, he sees the masterpiece being formed. Hold your head up, let what has fallen away remain in the past, and fix your eyes on what is coming. God is faithful to restore, and often what he brings in the next season will far surpass what was lost. The enemy may think he's won when loss occurs, but God always has the final say. What looks like defeat is simply the prelude to victory. True breakthrough doesn't just happen around you, it happens within you. Long before you see the doors open or the situation shift, something begins to transform on the inside. God often starts his greatest work in the places that no one else could see. Before he changes your circumstances, he changes your heart, your mindset, and your spirit. The breakthrough begins when you allow God to do the deep internal work that prepares you for what's ahead. It's easy to focus on external changes. We pray for new opportunities, better conditions, and resolve problems, but sometimes the greatest transformation is the one happening beneath the surface. God knows that if he alters your situation without transforming you, the blessing may slip right through your hands. So he uses the waiting season, the trials, and even the discomfort to shape you into someone who can carry the weight of the next level. The inside work is what sustains the external breakthrough. Think about a building under construction. The foundation is the most critical part, but it's also the part that no one admires. People celebrate the walls, the roof, and the finished product, but the foundation is hidden. Still, without that foundation, the entire structure would crumble under pressure. In the same way, God spends time strengthening your inner foundation, your faith, your resilience, your character, because he knows what's coming. If he's building high, he must first dig deep. You may feel like nothing is happening, but don't mistake internal growth for inactivity. Every time you choose to trust God over your fear, your faith grows stronger. Every time you resist the urge to quit, perseverance takes root. The small victories happening inside you are setting the stage for the larger victories that will manifest around you. God is not just preparing the blessing, he's preparing you for the blessing. And when the time comes, you will find that the internal work you allowed him to do has positioned you to step fully into your breakthrough. Transformation is rarely comfortable. Growth stretches you in ways that sometimes feel painful. You may find yourself confronting old fears, letting go of patterns that no longer serve you, and stepping into unfamiliar territory. This is all part of the process. God doesn't just want you to experience breakthrough, he wants you to maintain it. And that requires transformation from the inside out. Don't despise the inner work. Don't rush through the seasons where it feels like nothing is changing. Those are the moments where God is refining you, stripping away what's unnecessary and reinforcing what's essential. When the external breakthrough comes, it will be a reflection of the inner work that God has already completed in you. So embrace the process. The greatest breakthroughs don't just change your life, they change you. And when God transforms you from the inside out, no force in hell can stop the blessings he has prepared. What he starts internally, he will bring to completion externally. The breakthrough is already in motion.